Welcome to the Permanent Change of Station podcast, a place where friends can come together, agree or disagree, and still be friends. Join attorney and Forever Miss Oregon, Lynette Perez, each week as she covers such topics as law, relationships, faith, and current events. No matter the issue, Lynette believes it's time for a permanent change of station.
Hi there, this is Lynette with Permanent Change of Station podcast, a place where friends can come together on any subject, agree or disagree, and still be friends. Recently taped a wonderful segment on homeschooling with two of my friends, and although I was not a parent that opted for that route for my own children who attended both public school as well as private schools, I felt that I wanted to just talk a little more on a theme that came up during that discussion, and that is no matter what route you choose for your children, whether you're a homeschooling parent, whether your children are in the public schools, whether they're in private schools, whether they're in a boarding school situation, doesn't matter. My position on it is that you have to be fully engaged in your children's education. There is a strong correlation between student achievement and success, in my opinion, with parental involvement. Now, at my school, when I grew up and was an Army brat, that's how we kind of got this title to this podcast, PCS Podcast, because Permanent Change of Station was something that was very common in my life as an Army brat. But my mother was one of the principals in the Department of Defense schools. And I can tell you that if you look at people that attended her school, there is a high success rate of people who have gone on into careers in industry, whether they be blue collar, whether they join the military. A few people I know are 3- and 4-star generals right now in the armed forces that were some of the fellow Army brat kids that I grew up, such as Lieutenant General Ron Clark in the United States Army, one of the kids that grew up in Marshall Heights with me. But I noticed something when my mom had a parent-teacher association meeting at the Kitzigan Elementary School, and she was one of the principals for the K-8 school there in Marshall Heights, Kitzigan, Germany. My mom would contact the commanding general, General DeCamp at the time. And my mom called General DeCamp and said, "Hey, we have a parent-teacher meeting on such and such date, and I need all parents to attend this meeting." Well, when the commanding general sends out an order that you're going to attend that parent-teacher meeting, and that gets ordered by the commanding general of the base, guess what? There was 100% participation of parents in that parent-teacher meeting. And that was the kind of rapport my mom had in a military setting. And so when I had my own children, even though I was in a total civilian setting, I knew I had to be fully engaged. And even when my children, we opted, their father and I opted for them to go to schooling in Las Vegas while I was attending law school in Texas, I was still fully engaged. I was participating in Zoom pre-pandemic in all types of virtual phone calls and FaceTimes with my children's teachers because I needed to know and be on top of what was going on in the classroom with them. I have never viewed the teacher as being the person responsible for my children's educational endeavors and achievements. I see that as my responsibility and their father's responsibility. The teachers help facilitate that success, but the buck and the responsibility of their educational journeys was the responsibility for us as the parent. Now, one thing that I want to share is that in the example of my son, now I never had this situation with my daughter at all. And I, again, caution anyone, especially encourage if you are a parent of a son of color. Okay, I'm just putting it straight out there because it's just been my observation and my experience that there is institutional bias or inherent bias or whatever, implicit bias, whatever the proper term is. But I often saw that there were scenarios where educators tried to box my son into some type of corner and throughout his educational journey. Again, I'm talking about when he was really, really little, even pre-K little. Okay. And I specifically remember when my son was about 3 years old and I went in for this parent teacher conference. Again, I know my child better than anyone. Okay. I been with him since, he was with me in the womb. I know his personality. I know his intellectual ability. I knew he was exceptionally smart child because he could sing all of the lyrics to the theme from Titanic. He could sing that, and I have it videotaped. When he was about 18 months old, he knew all the lyrics to My Heart Would Go On. And not only could he sing the entire song from beginning to end with all the lyrics, he could sing it on pitch and he could sing it with emotion. You really felt that watching 18-month-old Adam that you were on the ship and it was going down the way he would express himself singing My Heart Would Go On by Celine Dion. And so I knew that this was a child that had extraordinary gifts, was extremely talented, extremely bright. And so I go in for this parent-teacher conference when he was about 3 years old, and this teacher had the audacity to tell me that she felt that I should have him tested, that perhaps he needed psychotropic medication, and that she could provide me names of people who could test him. Now, my reply to her was, the devil is a lie. Okay, because I knew there was absolutely zero wrong with a child that could sing lyrics not only from Titanic, but pretty much the entire repertoire of the St. James Gospel Choir. He also knew all of that when he was 18 months, 2 years old. He could sing all of these lyrics and and was this great kid, didn't have any emotional problems or anything. So I just shared that example because I pushed back. I did not take what this teacher was telling me as gospel truth because I was so engaged in my son's education. I was the one reading with him, doing scholastic things with him, as much so as the teacher was doing. And so I pushed back. I had my son placed in another class so that there would not be any, limitations just spoken into the atmosphere around him. And I can tell you, and I don't think he would mind me saying this because it is true, is that he has never taken any kind of psychotropic medication, whether it be in elementary school, high school, or college. My son went on to graduate from NYU's Tisch School of the Arts with honors, Dean's List person. So there was never anything intellectually wrong with my child or that he needed any type of psychotropic medication. And so I just, again, shared that story to encourage parents that you got to be so engaged and you got to not only know your child, but you have to be so engaged in this entire process. Be the one that's volunteering in the class. Be the one that's volunteering on the field trips. And that way you are fully engaged and you also know. I will probably do a whole nother podcast on this over medicating of our children. I think, yes, there are some children that may need psychotropic medication, but it's been my observation as a parent, as well as someone who works as an attorney in the child welfare system, that is like a quick reflex. That if there's a kid that has any type of issue, whatever it is, maybe he just needs fresh air and being able to not be in front of a TV or in front of a smartphone, and needs to just be playing outside, riding a bicycle, getting some fresh air. That's what they need before you start prescribing all of these medications. And I recently found this article on this very topic, an opinion piece on the Wall Street Journal. And I'm just going to, quote from this Wall Street Journal opinion piece. And it goes, a study published last year in the Journal of Clinical Child and Adolescent Psychology found that some 5% of American children were on stimulants like Ritalin and Adderall to treat ADHD and behavioral problems in 2016. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported a nearly 400% increase in antidepressant use in patients between 12 and 19 between when they were doing this particular review over a course of a decade. And yet many of these young people don't actually have ADHD, clinical depression, or anxiety. A 2000 study found that the majority of children and adolescents who were being medicated for ADHD did not fully meet the diagnostic criteria for the condition, criteria that are so subjective that a 2018 study in the New England Journal of Medicine showed that the younger a child is relative to his classmates, the likelier he is to be diagnosed with ADHD. The findings suggest the disruptive behavior is the result of immaturity, not illness. And so, again, I could go on and on this subject, but I just, again, wanted to encourage parents, challenge parents, and champion parents to, again, push back on this, stay engaged. We all, no matter what type of schooling experience you have, there needs to be an element of homeschooling. And this isn't about, only parents who have college degrees can do this. No, anyone can sit at a table or sit on the floor with their kids and help them and work with them on their homework, or to ask, what is the assignment, and not just take the child's response as gospel truth. You have the child show you the homework that they have done so that you know exactly whether or not it was done properly. And so those are just some thoughts I have on this subject. I could go on and on, but I'm going to wrap it up right here. This is Lynette Perez with Permanent Changes Station, a place where friends can come together on any topic, agree or disagree, and still be friends. See you soon.
You've been listening to Permanent Change of Station. Tune in each week for the latest episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts. You can find PCS Podcast online at pcspodcast.live and on social media. And while you're at it, don't forget to rate, subscribe, and leave a review. This helps others find the show, and we really appreciate it. We'll catch you in the next episode.